Hello, everybody, and we're back with some more Torah. We are learning the laws of charity, otherwise known as Tzedakah, which is a much better word, Tzedakah. And we are on chapter 34 in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and we're going to get to our learning in just a moment. Yesterday, we learned about how to give when somebody puts out their hand. So if you didn't have a chance to listen to part 4, you can tune in. Everything should be available on YouTube. Incredible. We want to learn today for Alishtama Avimori Moshe ben Chaim of blessed memory. We're learning for Refuah Shlema for Yisrael ben Chevet, Aliza Chana Bas Dina Riela Herschel Mendel Chaim ben Sheva Leah Bas Freda Noah Avram ben Mindel Ruth Batzar Goldman, Yitzhak ben Dvorah, Dina ben Mindel, Aaron Ber ben Gittel, Amram of Shoshana, Karen Shannon ben Gold Rachel, Daniel ben Dvorah, Mai Batzara, Azriel Lon Moshe ben Sarah, Chaim ben Esther, Batshev Rachel, Sarah Nachman ben Hershel Tzili, Rina ben Etzel, Mechalab Sor, Avon Shimon ben Sarah, Manuel ben Juliet, Herod ben Lilian, Ben ben Sarah, Claire ben Etzel, Chav ben Dina, Yoshua ben Blumari ben Esther. If you have people that need a refuah shlema, you want to sponsor class or just send in their name, please do. Oh, I see somebody here. We are going to include in our prayers. Oh, Tzipora Bat Tamara needs a big refuah shlema, and please send her our very best. And you can send her this message that we wish and pray for her to have a complete recovery. Let's hit the text. And it's very appropriate because everybody assumes that Purim is this holiday of drinking, and we often lose sight of all of the mitzvot of Purim. The biggest mitzvah, according to everybody, is the mitzvah of Tzedakah. So here we're learning a little bit more in depth into the mitzvah. We are on chapter 34, number 9 in the Kitzur. Tzedakah rei b'klal and adarim. Charity is included, and it's governed by the rules which govern vows. A neder is a vow, that you're a promise to do something. V'ayin lekamen, and he speaks about it later in chapter 67 in more detail. Lefichach hamoy ha'omer. So if somebody says, Harei alai sela tzedakah, harei sela zol tzedakah, they says, you know what, this coin is going to tzedakah, or I'm going to give this coin, or I'm there, I'm obliged. This is, for tzedakah. Chayav litna lani miyad. They have to give it right away to the poor. V'im echer, and if they procrastinate, oiver bebal ta'acher, and if they violate this, if they delay giving the money to tzedakah, to the poor people, they transgress a prohibition which is called bal ta'acher, which is being late in fulfilling your promises. You can look it up in Devarim, chapter 23, 22 in the Torah, where that is actually being late. It's not just bad manners, apparently. It also can be against the Torah if you have made a promise to do something. Since the person could have given it right away. So, again, this is assuming you could give it right away and you don't. I don't know, maybe you got cold feet, maybe you just got distracted like I just did. But let's say you say, I'm going to give this money to tzedakah, but you can't find any poor people. Should set aside the money until they find poor people. So what's interesting, and the question needs to be asked, is actually, if you look in the laws of vows, you generally have a lot longer to do something. I'm going to take care of that, right? Like, I'm going to change the light bulb, Mom, promise. So although usually you have 3 festivals, right? You have the time would, of going by the 3 festivals, that would consider in too long of a delay. But here we ding the person right away if they don't take care of their pledge to tzedakah. When the opportunity arises, they have to give it right away. So the Ahavas Chesed rules that let's say I'm going to give $20 to tzedakah, but I couldn't find the person. I can use that specific $20, but when the poor person comes, I have to give the equivalent of this, of what I promised, even if it means I have to borrow money from somebody else because I made a pledge. Today, this doesn't really apply because everybody can go on Venmo and PayPal and any other website and make an immediate donation to those who are in need. Now, the question is, if you made the donation and does it get to the person right away? That's always a big question. So I like to act locally in these ways, and that's why local organizations and campaigns that work with individual people is always a very good bet if you want to make sure that the tzedakah is getting to people efficiently. Not that the other organizations won't, although of course, God forbid, there are some, we've seen some scandals, there are some organizations that collect tzedakah that don't do tzedakah. But assuming it's a kosher organization, even so, it might be a little bit of a delay. Not to dissuade a person from doing it. We have to support those larger endeavors as well. But if a person wants to have immediate impact for the tzedakah, for let's say they said they're going to give tzedakah right now, or there's an immediate need that a desperate situation, they need to sway the heavenly scales in their favor. So you want to try to take care of these things as quickly as possible.
Is there more of a priority of giving to the local poor or to the poor in Israel?
Yes. So the order is the poor who are our family members, poor who are relatives, poor who are in our city, poor who are in our country. There is a little carve out, and it's definitely special to support poor people in Israel, especially poor people who may be, learning Torah. There is a lot of spiritual benefit attached to that. But if a person has to prioritize and they only have, very limited funds, the priority would be in their town to give. And when they have the opportunity, they can give to Israel another time. I always take, by the way, a portion of the money we raise for Purim tzedakah. I always give a portion in Israel from everybody. So anybody who gives to the Pico Shul Purim Chesed Fund. So this year we're going to be giving to some in Ukraine and in Israel, and the rest will be distributed to individuals here in Los Angeles. Okay, we are continuing. So now, let's say imnad basic knesses. You made you got an aliyah or something. You made a pledge in shul, in synagogue. Tzedakah shenoisnen lidei hagabai. This you're going to be given to the person who collects tzedakah in the shul or on the shul website, like it would be for us, right? Eino oiver ad sheyisba oiso hagabai. Until they get bugged by the gabai, the person who you made the pledge to, until you get bugged, you haven't delayed, right? So you said it, maybe you gave the pledge on Shabbos, and a few weeks went by, and then you made it. That's okay. Obviously, you should try to do it as soon as possible, but you're not oiver. You haven't transgressed this prohibition on delaying fulfilling your vow until you've been harassed by the synagogue office. Then, at that moment, you have gone over. Unless he knows, maybe the person who's collecting the money doesn't need the money to distribute it right now. So, this seems to be a case where a person is in the shul collecting on behalf of other people, and you know that the person doesn't need it right now. So that's one thing. But but they're going to keep the money until there's a need. So let's say, the emergency loan fund, emergency housing fund, or something like that. So then the money has not been allocated. So in theory, you could hold off a little bit. But when the donor is giving the charity themselves, and their procrastination, they're really there's a big problem. When it's going to a charity fund, and if there's no pressing need that's obvious, of course, though I'll say there usually is a pressing need, but let's say for the purposes of our learning, there's no pressing need. It's a fund that we're setting up to ensure that in case people need it, we have it. Not redeeming the pledge immediately is not a violation of this prohibition. And again, if you know that the funds won't be distributed right away, again, it's not a violation of the prohibition. Number 10, mi shaimer eten tzedakah, says I'm going to give this coin, literally this dollar to charity, and to a specific poor person. Ein oiver, and they don't give the money right away. They're not violating the prohibition ad sheyavo osani, until that poor person themselves actually comes to them. Bechol kodam la'afrish tzedakah. You can set aside funds for tzedakah, shiu munachim etzlo, and they remain with you when you see fit. So, right, you put aside some money. This is this pouch or this. What I like to tell people is to try to make an account, if you can, your tzedakah account. The money's there, ready to go, or you keep money in your wallet that you're always going to give out. For example, so even though it says money that was distributed, you said you're going to give the tzedakah, has to be given immediately, okay? Unless you stipulate at the time you made the pledge that you're going to give it out over time, right? I'm going to give $100 to tzedakah, by the end of next week or whatever it is. You make the pledge, you're not giving it immediately, so then that again is okay. Number 11. Hakofe acherim tzedakah. Let's say you are, so kofe usually means to force. If you look in the translations, you'll probably see that, let's say, maybe you influence or you prevail upon others, or you in a good way. And so you're compelling other people through your words or your deeds to get others to give tzedakah. Schar gadol mischar taisin is greater reward than the one who's giving tzedakah. Shneimar vayam ma'isi tzedakah shalom, because it says in the prophet Yeshayahu, the product of charity shall be peace. Ve'al gabai tzedakah yotzei behem gobayim et tzedakah. The people who go on collecting tzedakah for other people, they do the tzedakah funds. Ne'emar mitzedikah harbim kachavim. Those who make the multitudes do righteousness. This is from Daniel. Shine like the stars. So somebody who is a gabai tzedakah, right, who collects money from people and gives it to the poor people, who is abused by poor people, ein lo lachush, should not be disturbed. Ki al yedei zeh zechus yoseh gadol. Through being abused, humiliated, emotionally, by being called every 5 minutes, whatever it is, sometimes people don't have such, they have great need or other issues. Don't worry about that, because anytime you are going out to do a mitzvah and there's some opposing force, even the person you're trying to help, abusing you, yelling at you, screaming at you, why don't you do more? Why are you giving me more? Doesn't matter. All that's just a kapara. The merit of doing the mitzvah is actually greater. Number 12. Hamala gadol shein lemala himena b'mal tzedakah. The highest level of charity, where no higher level exists. Hi hamachzik b'yad Yisrael amach mamata. When you strengthen the hand of a fellow Jew when they become impoverished, right? We also learned before, of course, that we are obliged to help all the poor people in our city. In this sif, we're talking about the specific obligation to help those in our community. So if you see that a person is becoming, and of course, this was written, the Shulchan Aruch, this is ancient stuff. Today, the whole discussion over homelessness, the number one thing that all the experts agree is, if somebody is becoming poor, do whatever you can to keep them in their house. Don't let them fall below the standard that they have a place to live. And that's exactly what it says here, right? Machzik b'yad Yisrael lamach mata yado kodem shani legamra, before they become completely impoverished. Sheyitnen lo b'matan haguf b'derech kavod. Give them a substantial gift, an honorable gift, or lend them money. Or make a partnership with them, right? Find them some work or some business. In order to strengthen their hand, and that they not be forced to depend on the charity of other people. As it says, this type of charity, when you assist another person in this way, is called strengthening them. Strengthen the person that they shouldn't fall. So a person is in difficult straits. We do what we can, try to help them find a job, right? Connect them. Those kind of things, getting a person a job, that's tzedakah also. And this is a huge mitzvah. Look what it says. The highest level of charity, there's no higher level than preventing this person from falling into total impoverishment. It's just incredible that the Torah is so wise, and whatever we can do, and everybody can do this, right? You don't need to be a big check writer. You don't have to have a lot of money to be able to connect people with services or with jobs or something to the best of your ability. Of course, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but at least you're trying. And there's a whole question about people who are struggling, and let's say that there's a mental health issue, a component to why they're having trouble finding a job or making ends meet. So then it also would be a big mitzvah to help them, to encourage them, to try to get them to the help they need. Usually, unless you're a social worker, you don't have all of the skill set with which to get the person onto the best path. So don't give up if your efforts are not successful, because it's not so simple. And of course, it can work for a while, and then it can, stop working as well. All right, we're going to pause here. We're going to have one more section on the laws of tzedakah to wrap up this section. Everybody have an amazing day, and hope we're inspired to go out and do a lot.